Max are up. So does live. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us on Smooth 98.1 Love Music, Love Life. This is Smooth Breakfast with Ayo Myro Essay.
And he's Valentine Ohu. Good morning.
Good morning. It's about time for us to share detailed analysis of our newspaper stories. Most of the headlines are up on social media at Smooth981. Follow us on the conversation. Also, watch on YouTube. Type Smooth FM Lagos in the search box to find. You can also send through WhatsApp.
0809 4440981 is the number on WhatsApp.
Our guest analyst this morning, we have Ugo Dre. Thank you so much, Ugo, for
Morning, my
joining
brother.
us.
Thank you very much for having
Welcome.
me.
And Lakunle. Hello, Lakunle. Good morning.
Morning.
Lakunle Yusuf.
Morning, Ayo. Morning, Valentine.
Good
morning,
morning.
Ugo. Morning, Lagos.
Welcome.
The morning
All
rounds.
right.
Yes.
Let's go on to our very first story, Ugo. And gosh, the news is full this morning. So, on the NDA attack, that's the Nigerian Defense Academy attack in Kaduna State, there have been reactions as expected. Yesterday, we spoke about some of the reactions, and we did mention that the president or the presidency would say something. But he's released a statement through his signed by his special advisor on media and publicity, Femi Adesina. He said he was thanking Nigerians who value and appreciate the efforts of the military, while urging those playing hateful politics with the dastardly act to desist, noting that rather than recriminations, it was time for all patriots and people of goodwill to support and encourage those who are in the vanguard of the battle against wickedness in the land. In fact, he said that he was going to now make the armed forces solidly resolved to accomplish, defeating Boko Haram and bandits or terrorists such as this in the shortest possible time. So when we spoke about his statement yesterday, a number of reactions from our listeners as to what they were expecting or not expecting him to say. I guess the first thing I'd ask is, are you satisfied with his response? And then perhaps give your take and analyze his response.
Um, I'm trying to be careful here because the military also said, the media should be careful with blah, 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 blah. But to respond to your question directly, the response from the government is the typical response that you usually get from a Nigerian government, right? The response is not, uh, you know, I don't see the kind of empathy that you expect from a response when such an act has been committed. I also didn't see the kind of determination or responsiveness that you expect from a government. And this is because this has happened one too many. So you basically, and each time it has happened, you actually haven't seen a response that is to action. All you just see is just verbal responses. We'll do this dastardly. I mean, it just appears that they probably just bring this out all the time, and then adjust it, rewrite it, and just edit it a bit, and then publish again. But to the story itself, Ayo, it's disheartening, and the fact that they could attack a defense academy, just shows that these guys are getting emboldened, right? So you're now done attacking schools, defenseless schools, right? Now you're showing that, what, you were calling us cowards because we're attacking defenseless students. Now we'll attack military schools. And you read things like this and you ask yourself, okay, so if you're a government, or this is a government that is really serious, right, and really takes things like this very seriously, I think one of the first things in this morning is heads rolling. For whether from a national security advisor all the way to run, people should have just resigned and gone. And it's because you see actions like this that you see all sorts of people start to come out and talk and come up with all sorts of theories.
Yeah.
Whether you like call it conspiracy theories or whether you like call it, insider info, but people starts to come, and some of these things have some form of, I don't know what to call it, credibility, because of the way, it's just, I mean, for example, a part of the story was a former naval commodore or something, and he was on TV confidently telling everyone that these Boko Haram attacks are all insider
And they're
sponsored. Yeah, they're
sponsored, yeah.
sponsored by people that the DSS knows. They know these people, they know their names, they know who they are, and they are deliberately not doing anything. And he also says that perhaps this is, all geared towards the 2023 election and all sorts of conspiracy stuff. And whether he's saying the truth or not, the fact that they have a government who is not reacting the way they should react allows people to believe things like this. And these rumors, like people say, there's just a little bit of truth in every rumor, right? And you have these things spreading and continue to heat up the policy. It's really upsetting that not it's a disgrace that in 2021, right, over 10 years or so after I've been having an attack from Boko Haram, that they can go into a defense academy that's supposed to be a fortress and attack young military men. They've gone beyond students, right, who are defenseless.
And
Now they're,
civilians.
yeah, and they still call them bandits till today. That's even more annoying. They're not even called terrorists. They're still called bandits. Oh, bandits moved in there with all there's so many of them, and how did they even get in? I don't know.
Well, thank you very much, Ogo. We have from the PDP, the main opposition party, saying that the National Assembly should cut short its recess and invite President Buhari to explain what he's doing about the country's security situation. In fact, Kola Ologbondiyan, who is their spokesperson, said that the country it's like it's being run by Boy Scouts, or Boy Scouts would have done a better job. This is a quote from him, mind. Let's move on to our next story, Lakunle, and we'll come back to another security one, Ugo, talking about the state of security and how we hear one story after the other. There's something else that's happened in Plateau Jos, we'll come into very shortly. But before then, so whilst all these things are going on, the presidency is concerned about Governor Autumn's statements on grazing reserves and releases a full statement by the senior special assistant to the president of media and publicity, Barbara Shehu, titled Statement Concerning Samuel Autumn, the governor of Benue State. I think people should read this article from the Punch newspaper, because when you read the content, you're wondering, was it from the SSA?
Incredible.
Is this a school fight? What are we doing here with the myriad of issues? You're writing things around the fact that he's unprincipled because he's changed his political party 5 times. His people should not vote for him at the next election. He's the good. Well, Lakunle, it's your story. Please let me know. Let me hear your take on this.
Yesterday we spoke about the anyhowness that we see in our country, and that every day it goes to a higher level that you never imagined. When I saw this story, the first thing that came to my mind was, please, can somebody tell these two people to grow up? I mean, if we're in primary school and we were having a fight, I remember in those days we used to abuse our parents. Your daddy, that is this. This is typically what the two of them are doing.
And the people are suffering, by the way.
We have left the real issue out of it now, and it's now personal. And I think at this level, people should be mindful of how they react to things. Now, people out there generally say that you only hear Oton speak once a month when it's time to pay salaries, because he's not going to pay. So we will bring up one story to distract people from asking him to pay salaries of Benue workers. Okay, so this is typical one. Now look at the time. This is end of the month here. So he's come up with something to say, blah blah blah. The same story every day.
Said about conspiracy theories and how they almost feed into it.
Exactly. So you see it now. Once a month you hear Otom bring up this cattle, Islamized, ethnic, whatever, once a month, and he does it consistently since the beginning of this year, at least, that I've noticed. Now, this man, instead of responding to the issue itself, he goes personal. I mean, if this is so what should we expect in terms of actualization of the years of the people, when people who are in positions to make things better are busy doing this to each other? I think that both of them should just grow up and face the act of governance and leave us. What is our business with what happened in Rwanda 20 years ago? People in there don't even want to remember it. Why are we bringing it up for crying out? People there are trying to even blot out that part of their history.
Let me just break down why you make that reference. So the presidency accused Governor Autumn of, let me get that part now. He said he's making statements, yes, using sectarian language similar to that of the Rwandan genocide of 1994 while reacting to the security challenges in the state. So they're saying that what he's doing is divisive, the same things that caused the Rwandan genocide between the
But
Tutsi and Tutsis.
don't forget, the people of Rwanda today are trying to blot those 18 months out of their history. If you go to Rwanda today, if you ask somebody, where are you from? Say, I'm Rwanda. Nobody talks about their ethnicity anymore in that country.
I think the major
So why is it, and why are we bringing up here?
the major concern really is the Nigerian people and how this feeds into the divisiveness.
So that's why we need to tell these guys to grow up.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to redirect attention to the Nigerian people.
Yeah.
Because in as insensitive as that sounds, making that reference to the Rwandan people, the primary concern is Nigerians and how your rhetoric now feeds into or fuels that fire that we're trying to quench.
Yeah.
Let's take messages here. Jerry Ruba from Barrow Estate says, killing and kidnapping every day, when shall these end? Thank you for that question. Sheldon says, go after the terrorist sponsors and it will end in weeks.
Correct.
Those in government and the main opposition, they were in government too, almost certainly know the sponsors, but the politicians will not reveal their names. Even the late General Azazi said they know the sponsors. Go after the sponsors. These sponsors, he emphasizes again, these sponsors, Sheldon, thank you.
And I have to mention that the sponsors he talks about, this is not just a layman saying this. This is a naval.
And intelligence-
Of course, yeah. And man, he revealed a lot of
He did.
stuff.
I was thinking about
Believe it or not.
this man went on this show thinking, if I die, my
No,
parents
he
are
said
gonna
it
be-
there.
He said it.
He said he might probably,
be killed for this, but
For
he
it.
doesn't care. So for it to get to that extent where somebody
When you hear statements like this, what should be the responsible response from the government? Shouldn't it be like, okay, review the names, we want to get them because we want to finish this? But we don't hear anything.
political will.
it starts by people taking responsibility, and that's not what's happening.
All right, so we have this one from JJ saying it's very sad we get this type of reaction from the president. His reaction was very different when the Lekki toll issue happened. His weight or determination nation was much stronger. Very sad indeed.
Douglas says, from King Douglas from Inqury, he says the Nigerian army should be ashamed of themselves that bandits were able to disgrace them. It's on armed civilians that they should. Okay. King Douglas, I understand those sentiments, but the military has been really affected in this. But you want to take it to the point?
Yes, he says Governor Autumn is talking about grazing reserves. Presidency is talking about defection. Are they the same thing? Why is presidency speaking out of point?
Joseph May says, so good morning, everyone. So till this very moment, no heads have rolled, no arrests. It's really obvious that there are moles in the security agencies in the government as well. Because how much or how come such attacks could be successful, yet no anger to retaliation because of the disgrace? Even the presidency, as usual, there's a definite silence from their end yet again. May God help us.
Amen. Let's move on to our next story. So I'll come to you now, Ugo, talking about another unfortunate incident. Even I'm almost borrowing the same language you use here every morning. Unfortunate incident. Incessant killings. Plateau, Benue gunmen kill 44 youths, deposit corpses at government house. So the Punch reports that protests yesterday rocked Jos, the Plateau State capital, following the killing of 36 persons in an attack on the Yelwa Zangam community in the Jos North local government area of the state on Tuesday. In response, young people stormed some of the hospitals where these corpses were had been put and took them and dropped them in different government houses and government offices. I'd like to hear your take on this. Beyond the youth's action, of course, this speaks of frustration, anger.
Yeah.
But tell me what you think about this. Another day, another killing.
Exactly. In fact, when I was looking at the headlines today, I had to tell what I mean. Like, I'm not going to start my Thursday like this. But that's the reality, and that's where we are as a country. So this is Plateau State that I think has been relatively out of the news, from Spirit's point of view in recent months, if not years, and then this is now happening. Other reports suggest, unconfirmed, of course, that this attack was from, in quote, Fulani headsmen or Fulani guys, and who were, fighting the villagers of that community. And these guys came in the night, started burning everywhere, and then, killed over 30 people. And of course, what do you expect from the youths? Because to the youth, they're like, this is just one too many. What do we do? They feel helpless. The government is not there to protect them. Security agencies are not there to protect them. In fact, in one other report I read, when the security agencies were trying to get in, to try and do rescue, they had blown off the bridge or burned down the bridge or dismantled the bridge already, basically leading into that into the community. So they couldn't even get in there. And you read this thing, and these things just they all sound very coordinated. Like the people who are doing this know what they are doing, and it's well targeted. It's basically targeted at just you know shaking the country and trying to put some kind of divide. If they try, sometimes they try ethnic divide, sometimes they try religious divide, but they definitely know what they are doing. And these are just very barbaric things. The governor, according to him, said he was in a closed door meeting with the president, I think, yesterday. And in that meeting, he was asking for relief materials for the community, for people, so that they can, get through this. The president said he will talk to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, to see what they can do, and he also suggested that they were still dealing with a lot of IDPs related issues in the state, and a lot of these things are all different kind of undertones that you can. So IDPs. So what are you basically trying to say? You're saying that these IDPs are usually recruited. I mean, what exactly is the point? Because he's saying that a lot of IDPs, he needs to get them out. It's just so many problems. So Ayo, the entire security apparatus in the country has basically failed us to a large extent. I mean, this is from the vantage point of what we know, right? So, most times what you hear are the attacks. You actually don't hear the ones that they have prevented. That usually doesn't come out in news. So sometimes I try to be very careful. But, it's one attack too many. It's happening a lot, particularly in the north. And this is under a government that is headed by a former military general and with a lot of with people with a lot of experience in military or counterinsurgency or civil security. And it's as if every single turn there are issues. And like people say, perhaps maybe because you don't have the balls yet to declare some of these guys as terrorists. Right? What's the big? I mean, if you have a particular sect or clan or people that are constantly attacking, I mean, what else is terrorism? How else can
How
you
do you?
define terrorism?
Thank you.
What is it like? What's the meaning of banditry anyway? Do you understand?
Give
Banditry, yeah.
new
Banditry
definition.
is like stealing. You
Thieves.
just go in and just beat people and
Thieves.
steal their
Yeah,
things.
the
Yeah,
thieves,
like
the
Robin
bandits,
Hood.
yeah.
Right, but this is not Robin Hood. This is not banditry. This is pure terrorism. Like
They're
people can't even
terrorizing
yes.
people.
You're basically burning down, people's properties, killing them, going after military installations. That is pure terrorism of the highest order. And like I say again, if you have the body language of the government not tilting, not displaying this kind of emotion, this kind of and calling the name, calling it what it is,
Yeah.
terrorism. And then this is just always going to continue, and that's what we're seeing.
Right. Thank you so very much, Ugo. Call it as it is. Call the spade a spade.
Please let's take a break. We'll come back to your messages and the rest of the story. Stay with us here on Smooth.
Union Bank doesn't have. We don't break down. All right, we're back here on Smooth 98.1, and we go on to our next story, Lakunle, and that is that Nigeria signs military technical cooperation treaty with Russia. It's a very straightforward story, but it was important to mention this because we're talking about security and some of the initiatives, advances that the government is making in terms of tackling insecurity in the country. Please take us through this story.
Well, I'd say congratulations to the Nigerian military apparatchik for this. I know in the recent times we've had various cooperation and bilateral relationships with the governments of the United States, China, Pakistan, and now the Russian government to provide and support our military with equipment and in some instances training. Um, if we look at the history of Nigerian military in the recent history, particularly between 1998 or say 1995 and 2014, we might have noticed that what they had in terms of equipment may have been obsolete because successive governments in those periods paid less attention to updating what they have as they should have. Now that was one of the reasons that ended up we had expired in quote bombs in Maryland going off by itself sometime in that time too as well. So this is good. All right. So the military would have more equipment to be able to pursue their constitutional duties. And of course, as a closing line, all this will not be useful, will be a futile exercise if we don't put all these things to use to end our current security challenges. So that's just the story around it.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
There are a few messages on YouTube. Bayomi Lagbaja says the response from the presidency is really disappointing, but I really do not expect much. Dapo says good morning. Next up, Asurok. No. Let's move on. There are more messages here.
All right, so from Yinka, we have that I urge all Nigerian army officers to remain calm and law-abiding as well as go about their civil. Okay, he's saying he were to release a statement. Thank you.
Tire from Aja says people are dying and dead in Plato. And now, in response to the letter to Autumn, I wonder if it was because of party affiliation. The government is not serious about security plans, plain and simple.
All right, Governor Lalong begging for food is disgraceful. Instead of confronting presidency on the killings of the people, you're going in circles. Disappointed, says Emeka Eden.
All right, let's move on to the next story on NSAS. NSAS victims, solicitors petition Ishaku. Federal government over delayed damages. This story is from the Guardian newspaper. Ugo Dre, the victims under the ages of from Taraba State and with their representatives, legal luminaries, are asking for this. Apparently, 47 victims signed this petition and stated that they are compelled court to communicate their demands to the highly esteemed office.
You have to say under the ages. Can be something you've been used to. Like
You
you're used
know,
to so many
So many
associations.
groups. You open a newspaper, you see this group, you've never heard of them before, but they're making announcements in the news.
It's all part of getting your hands on the national cake. These guys, I think that they've been putting a lot of pressure on Taraba to take over. This is not the first time this news is surfacing. I think it's been surfacing since like June or July or something this year, because I've seen it a few times. They want their own money, they want their own compensation, and that's because, a couple of victims of the NSAS crisis in some other states, I think have been paid compensation, and I think this story also sort of alludes to that as well. And so this for something people are saying, it's our own now, it's our own compensation. So, Governor, you probably have this money in your kitty. Why don't you just give us our compensation? I'm surprised that it's only just for the something people in there, but just shows the extent to which the NSAS, related violence occurs not just in Lagos but around the country. And by the way, these are actually people that are victims of police brutality, not necessarily people that were victims of the NSAS protest itself.
Yes.
Right.
Thank
So
you for
even
that.
though the sort of in the headline was NSAS, and it's basically people that victimized by the police, and that's what they're asking for. So, we can only just join the ages of the Association of NSAS Compensating Receivers to tell them to do the state government to please pay them their money. Thank you.
Thanks for that light notes, because I didn't think I was going to chuckle at anything today. Next story. So the Federal Road Safety Commission and the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, they disagreed over allegations that the latter, that's first, the Fiscal Responsibility Committee was accusing the Federal Road Safety Commission that they did not remit the 5.1 billion naira into Federation account from 2016 to 2019. So for the past couple of days, we've been reviewing all these challenges. So come and defend the money you've been spending and all that.
CAC.
Oh yes, now it's FRSC. There's also another part of the story where they requested 70 million naira, the budgetary provision for the acquisition of software. Software was not named. There are some other allegations. There's a funny part that I actually get to, where the Pipeline Products Pricing Regulatory Agency was walked out on the floor of the House, from the floor of the House, by the Assembly members, saying that there was discrepancies on their documents, that they were doctoring figures, and their head was just stuttering through the figures, couldn't explain. But what are your thoughts based on the recent, of governments have really been, flying amok, never really called to question, and now it's happening. What do you expect?
Well, it's not that it never happens. This happens every year.
It's expected to happen. It
You know,
doesn't happen every year.
this sessions happens every year. Maybe not with them, not with the same agencies, but this process happens every year. Last year we had of Nemasa's case. 2 years ago was Nemasa that was brought to the. Last year it was the off your mic thing. You remember, and so on and so. But because every time this thing comes up, we only hear the beginning like this. The end of it, we don't get to hear. There's a political solution to it at the end.
So if it doesn't end, it never happens, really, does it?
Yes, because that's where we are headed. Because at the end of the day, there's a political solution to it, and then we come back again next year with another agency to repeat the same thing. It speaks the same way to that anyhowness that every one of us talk about. That people know that they can do anything and get away with it, and that is why all these things happen. Now they have come here. Somewhere in this story, somebody asked the question: "Are you cooking your books?" The chairman of this committee is a chartered accountant or is a finance person. So ordinarily looking at the things, it will be able to identify the things that are not right.
Sure.
So why do they think that they can get away with those kind of things? They think that they can just bring paper and then bamboozle the people there and go away.
So apparently they now think otherwise. But what do you expect to see as in what results from the body language of those doing the questioning the committee members? What do you see?
Yes,
coming
yes.
out of that?
What would we expect? Then would then be say, for example, no budgetary allocation to you until you explain the one that you have spent. Don't forget, FRSC is a money making organization for the government.
No,
they're
it's not.
supposed to return money to the government at the end of the day. Yes, they are.
Are they supposed to be that though?
But they find you where you
Yeah,
they make money. All those money don't
generate
end in there.
revenue.
They generate revenue.
Sorry, who else is uncomfortable?
You
with
do
it?
drivers. I'm sorry for using the word money making, but that's the easiest phrase I could have used. They make money, whether it is enough, whether it is huge or not. If you are caught without a seatbelt, drive without a seatbelt, it's 2,500 naira. Your brake light is 3,000 naira, I think, and so on and so forth.
I think
So
there's even this argument around who
So,
takes custody of
they,
driver's license.
they only say that they are not the one who fix the prices, but they are the ones who collect it.
Let me just say something, right? The reason why I expressed my discomfort at such rhetoric is if you keep bandying that thought, it will be taken for granted that we are a money-making machine. So instead of focusing on the regulation that you're supervising, for instance, making sure that people drive well, obey traffic rules, and all that, the focus will then be on money, and
No.
then we'll be setting a trap for people to actually, pay these monies.
Not at
instead
all.
of
The
making
intention
them
is
alive.
not to do that. The intention is to highlight that the FRSC do a wonderful job. Sometimes I pity those ones, particularly on the expressway.
Okay.
They are the Lagos Ibadan expressway. They are overwhelmed. Sometimes you pity them. They do a lot of good work, yes, but that they do fines. The money goes to their coffers, and they're supposed to remit a part of it to the government. So it is that bit. So if you say that you are only able to make 100 million and you are spending 200 million, you need to explain how you spend the 100 million and you need excess another 100 million to spend. That is the issue.
Thank you so much. We'll wait to see the explanations. And let's also note that these are just questions asked, and they are here to present their defense or confirmation of these sums. Now let's move on to this final story here from Ugodre. Please, this day is from this day. Ugodre, please share your thoughts on the human rights lawyer, Mr. Femi Falana San, asking for government officials to be banned from seeking healthcare abroad. Just goes back to the conversation we had yesterday.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
need to watch the replay of that
actually
thing.
listening to Cheta and Mr. C.
Yeah.
Really enough on this topic. I think that you don't you don't fix wrong with another wrong, right? I don't think it makes any sense. So you can't ban. We hate hearing that word ban, and you can't also now say ban government officials from even if it does make some kind of logical sense because of the kind of things that we're going through. But you really can't ban public officials of anyone from seeking healthcare from anywhere, because at the end of the day, you're not wishing death on anyone, right? So wherever it is that you can go and get healthcare, go and get healthcare. What I think should be the issue is the so-called government officials that are going abroad to seek health care. How do they get funding to go abroad to seek health care? That's the thing. Because if you're a government official and we know that your salaries are very not that much, right? So how are you able to fund healthcare overseas? So why don't you just deal with that issue? And then secondly, also deal with the issue of having elected officials that can provide the kind of health facilities that we need in the country. I mean, it's very easy to say ban them, right? And then, well, where does it stop? I mean, banning them, what does it really? Yes, it probably might be some kind of deterrence, but I don't see how that is ever going to happen. Valentine, I really don't see how, and not something that I support in that direction. I think that there are better ways of doing this, but in terms of a conversation, and in terms of how these things affect all of us, I think it's have to go to what's the hospital again?
We have to. All right, thank you so much. A special thanks to Godre for your apt analysis, as well as Lakunle70, that's his handle on social media. So Ugodre is Ugodre. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for listening. We see the comments still coming in. Please join us in 9 or 8 minutes now for Lagos Talks 981. Here we will read your comments and take your telephone calls in response to any of the questions we've talked about or the conversations we've had this morning on Freshly Pressed.
Wow, time flies. It's 8 already.
Yeah.
That's me. I managed to do a story today. Very depressing stories.
Yesterday, almost